Babylon, the city at the center of the world, the largest and most powerful of the Middle Bronze Age. But how did it become so prosperous? How did it become an empire? And most importantly, what am I looking at? Was that tower even real? All of these and more will be answered in this episode of the Human Saga. This is the rise of Babylonia. This site was a village of the Sumerian civilization from 2900 BC, initially called Baba, but renamed as the City of Babylon by Sargon of Akkad around 2300 BC, and having a ziggurat for a god constructed during the time of King Char-Kali-Shari, the possible inspiration for the mythical Tower of Babel, which was plausibly for Marduk, god of the heavens and creation, an equivalent to Zeus and associated with the planet Jupiter, being the later patron god of Babylon. The city will be integrated into the Sumerian dynasty at Ur, and guess what? It's 2004 BC and the Neo-Sumerian Empire is falling apart. The armies of Elam, coming from present-day Iran before its Indo-European migration, have invaded Ur and taken the last king, Ibbi-Sin, and a statue of Nana, the moon god, for some reason, back to Elam. Now, Ibbi-Sin was most likely unalive, but what remained in Mesopotamia? The answer is, of course, fragmentation, a violent one. Although many surrounding states tried to hold Mesopotamia for themselves, the varied populations of Sumerians, Akkadians, Amorites, and even Kassites didn't let that happen. The remains of the third dynasty of Ur remained in power of city-states populated by the previously mentioned, which all had their important role. The Sumerians were the source of most of the architectural, cultural, and practical norms of the others, while the Akkadians were responsible for what remained as the most widely used written and spoken language. The reason why Akkadian is more related to modern Semitic languages like Hebrew and Arabic than Sumerian is, and the third ones will give name to the time between 2000 and 1600 BC, the Amorite period. I'll tell you a bit of lore about them. Their name means people from the west and are believed to originate from the mountains south of the Middle Euphrates or Arabia, being pastoralists who slowly integrated the Neo-Sumerian civilization and slowly became culturally unrecognizable from the Sumerians, achieving important roles in a few generations, until the Ur dynasty went RIP. For the survivors, the fallen Neo-Sumerian Empire was as important as Rome was for the kingdoms that followed it. So of course, the most prominent kingdoms claimed to be the legitimate successors to the late empire. The most important ones in between 2000 and 1900 BC were Ishin in the west and Larsa in the east, also home to the sun god Utu. The dynasty of Ishin continued to use Sumerian in the most important aspects of society, but still had Akkadian throne names, probably to remain popular amongst this cultural group. One of his kings, Ishbiera, liberated Ur and other cities from Elamite occupation in between 2002 and 1990 BC, but they lost the cities of Nippur and others by the hands of the dynasty of Larsa, which by 1940 BC was ruled by an Amorite king, Sabaya. His brother Gungunum took the throne after him and conquered the city of Ur from Ishin's hands. Both him and his brother were popular amongst their people, being competent military leaders who launched campaigns against Elam and came back successful. The Elamites were rivals to the people of Mesopotamia, but also incredibly important trading partners, since they controlled the Silk Road of their time, being the source of crucial trading goods from the east. The camaraderie against a common enemy might have been the source of some unity between Sumero-Akkadians and Amorites, welcoming the latter as long as they prove their worth, and they definitely did, being the reason why between 1900 and 1800 BC, cities like Uruk, Sippar, and Kish will become independent city-states with Amorite rulers. One of them, in 1894 BC, was Babylon. The Amorite king Sumuabum conquered the city, starting the first dynasty of Babylon, and fortified it, even building fortresses in the surroundings. Larsa had become the richest of them all by 1810 BC, due to their access to the Persian Gulf and to Elamite trade, but in that year they attempted to conquer towards the northwest, menacing the city-state of Uruk. The king of the city will send a letter to the ruler of Babylon asking for help, saying Uruk and Babylon are one house and can speak openly. The king of Babylon accepts the request and joins forces against Larsa, starting with a major battle. Ishin and other cities join Uruk's side, and after a short war, Larsa wins anyway. Babylon remained unconquered, but it feared that wouldn't be for too long, since Larsa became even more powerful, motivating the construction of even more fortifications, making Babylon into the best defended area in all of Mesopotamia, having a seemingly impassable border. This is where you put the meme of and delete this, of course. The kingdom of Larsa attacked in 1801 BC, but although there is no info from the battle, the continuing prosperity of Babylon implies that they didn't really pass. The coastal kingdom didn't let that failure stop them and invaded Ishin in 1793 BC, ending the last Sumerian dynasty. Meanwhile, the cities of Kish, Sippar, and others integrated the Babylonian kingdom. Another important city of the time was Mari in the Middle Euphrates, originally a vassal state conquered by Sargon, but was given a rebirth by the hands of an Amorite descendant in 1830 BC. His name was Yagid Lim, who started the Lim dynasty. In 1794 BC, an Amorite king from the north conquered Mari, named Shamshi Adad, who would conquer parts of Jamhad to the west, acquiring territories in modern-day Syria, making Mari into an empire, controlling most of northern Mesopotamia, bordering the other kingdoms. Mesopotamia was now divided in Larsa, Babylon, Eshnunna, and Mari. These kingdoms cooperated in many ways, having Sumero-Amorite cultural features in common. They prosecuted each other's fleeing criminals and protected each other in case of invasion, being at a similar level of civilizational progress as medieval Europe, only about 3 millenniums earlier, and it is in 1792 BC that a new king ascends to the throne of Babylon, one with an intelligence and military potential that surprised his elders. His name was Hammurabi the Amorite, and his age was just 18. Having the responsibility of guiding a young growing kingdom, the first 5 years of Hammurabi's rule were focused in social affairs, getting the Babylonian people to a prosperity similar to Larsa, laying the foundations for a great economy, as well as renovating temples and canals. Because of being a generous king, he was compared to the great king Gudea from centuries before. But at the age of 24, in 1787 BC, he launched his first military campaign by invading the cities of Ishin and Uruk, belonging to Larsa, being actually successful in capturing them, which got him the respect from the Babylonian people. Larsa was a coastal kingdom, Babylon a fortified city, Eshnunna a warring state, and Mari ruled in the north. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony, but everything changed when the state of Eshnunna attacked, planning to take territories of Mari for themselves in 1766 BC. This attempt was welcomed by a coalition of Mari, Babylon, Jamhad, and even Elam was pissed off with them for some reason. After a whole year of war, it ended with the siege of Eshnunna, which, although difficult, was successful. The consequence was the Elamite conquest of the place, generating a stronger rival for the Akkadian-speaking people of Mesopotamia, being a reason for Babylon and Mari to strengthen their armies, and also their relationship. An alliance with Mari and his king Simri-Lim was one of Hammurabi's best decisions in his early years, due to the familiar connections he had with the kingdom of Jamhad, thus giving him access to Mediterranean trade. And in 1765, the Elamites, led by Siwe-Palar-Kupak, attacked Mari and Babylon at the same time, both of which joined forces, supported by many other city-states in the area, and Simri-Lim of Mari swore allegiance to Babylon. From this day on, for as long as I live, I will be at war with Siwe-Palar-Kupak. The effort was reminiscent of the later Crusades. Hammurabi requested Larsa to join the fight, but they didn't respond. The reason: Hammurabi was a young, ambitious man. After he conquered the Elamites, it wouldn't take long until he felt confident enough to invade Larsa. So they were better off staying out of the expenses of conflict with Elam for the time being. After a year filled with battles against the Elamites, Hammurabi started conscripting professionals, including merchants, into the military, which would be paid with high wages. In late 1764 BC, the fields of Eshnunna were burned by the Babylonians, and after many battles, the Elamites were finally driven back to where they came from. The following years were not peaceful. Hammurabi had interpreted the neglective behavior of Larsa as a threat, driving him to declare war to that prosperous kingdom in 1763 BC. The Babylonians tore down the walls of Larsa, but they didn't raid it. They focused their efforts in capturing Rim-Sin, the king, and executed him. This made Babylon, now in power of Eshnunna and Larsa, into a de facto empire, and Hammurabi into the emperor of Babylonia. In 1754 BC, he will publish the famous Code of Hammurabi, a law code that reflects all of the knowledge from his 37 years of reign until then. These laws were notoriously harsh with criminals and focused more in a rightful punishment than in compensating the victim, like the Code of Ur-Nammu did 300 years prior. It also contains the first iteration of the presumption of innocence. The life in the Babylonian Empire at the time wasn't at the same level as that of a Roman citizen, but considering they lived some 1800 years prior, it wasn't that far off either. Come, put yourself in the shoes, or rather sandals, of a free person in Hammurabi's Babylon. You are an Akkadian, or a Sumerian, or an Amorite. To be fair, you could be from any culture, cause with all of that my lineal Game of Thrones going on, there were more languages and cultural groups in that city than in modern day London, and with so many people coming from Egypt, the Levant, the East, and basically the entire civilized world visiting the city to trade or stay, it is no surprise that it was called the city at the center of the world. The heat is intense. When I say intense, I mean 40-something degrees in summer. Your house is a very welcome defense against the heat, even though it looks like something you could definitely recreate in Minecraft in less than 10 minutes. The breakfast is freshly baked bread with dates and a little meat, and of course, hot milk, drunk from the jug with a straw. The women in your family have more rights than many do today in third world countries, to the point that a man's wife has the right to receive a mandatory dowry from her husband, and insurance to protect her financially in case one of them has an accident or illness that prevents them from earning money. Cause yes, at the time the state didn't distribute resources. There was a certain degree of free market in which your social position beyond royalty depended on how intelligently and hard you worked. And even though there was no money, as in no coins, your economical status was determined by the amount of resources you had. Getting out of your house, you walk through the beautiful streets of Babylon. Is the 7th day of the week of the first month of the year, Ara Nichanu, the month of the beginning, which in their case began in March. Since every 7th day of their weeks was a Saturday, it was the Sabbath or holy day, when it was time to bring offerings to the gods Marduk and Ishtar. Some didn't have to work on Saturdays to avoid distractions from offerings to the gods, but the others did have to work every single day of the week. You approached the temple of Marduk, a beautiful building with thick walls and colorful pillars, filled with blue and gold, a place worthy of serving as an offering to the God of the heavens. You enter and leave part of your earnings as an offering, which, although not as just as it is today, functions as a tax. Life is good, even in the vibrant heat of our past. Show!